We were told that the soul came to this world to learn, to suffer, and to return one day to the light. But what if that story were not true? What if inside every human being there existed a spark that this world did not create? In 1945, among the sands of Egypt, a manuscript appeared, buried for centuries, a text that not only reinterpreted creation, but put the Creator himself under suspicion. That text was the secret book of John. And if what it said was true, then Genesis was not the start of the truth, but the start of the cover-up. Today, we are going to open that file. And the most disturbing thing is not what this manuscript says about God. It is what it implies about you. Egypt, December 1945. Near Nag Hammadi, a group of farmers find a sealed jar. Inside were ancient codices, texts hidden for centuries, as if someone had wanted to tear them out of history, but not destroy them completely. Among those manuscripts were strange gospels, secret dialogues, forbidden revelations, and one that was especially unsettling: the secret book of John. And here, we must understand something important. This was not a devotional text. It was not a pious reflection. It was not a simple commentary on the Bible. It was a theological bombshell. Because it didn't just reinterpret Genesis. It did something much worse. It questioned the identity of the creator of the material world. And that changed everything. Because if the text was right, the problem wasn't just how humans lived. The problem was who had built this reality. And to understand that, we have to go much further back than the clay, much further back than Adam, and enter a story where a name appears that shatters it all: Sophia. According to this manuscript, the origin of everything is not in the earth, nor in the dust, nor in the flesh. It is in a reality of absolute light that the Gnostics called the Pleroma, a divine fullness beyond time, death, and fear. From that fullness emanated divine principles, expressions of a single source, and among them appears a decisive figure: Sophia. Wisdom. Remember that name, because later you will understand why her role completely changes the story of Adam. According to the text, Sophia wanted to contemplate for herself the depth of the source, and in that impulse, something incomplete emerged. Not a demon in the classical sense, not a storybook villain, but a being separated from the fullness, blind to its true origin, and yet charged with power. The Gnostics called him Yaldabaoth. They also called him the Demiurge. And here is where the official story breaks. Because this being, unaware that a superior reality existed above him, believed he was the only God, he proclaimed himself absolute Lord, and he began to craft a world in his own image, a material world, dense, limited, subject to time, pain, and death. But the most unsettling thing is that this creator could mold matter, and even so, he lacked something essential. He could not produce true life, and that is where Adam comes in. In the traditional version of Genesis, God forms man from the dust, breathes into him, and man lives. But not here. In the secret book of John, the Demiurge and his powers mold a body. They construct the human form. They prepare the vessel, but the body remains motionless, empty, without a spark, without true consciousness. And that means something devastating: that the creator of this world can mold matter, but he cannot ignite the inner light of the human being. Then, something secret happens. An intervention, a crack in the system. According to the text, a superior force linked to Sophia introduces into the human being a spark coming from the realm of fullness, not from the Demiurge, not from matter, not from the Lord of this world. From another place, from an earlier order, from a light that this world did not manufacture. And then Adam rises. But he doesn't just rise as a creature. He rises as an anomaly, as a problem, as living proof that, Within the realm of the false creator, something has appeared that does not belong to him. And here is where the true scandal of this manuscript is born. Because, if that were true, the human being would not be a simple, obedient creation. He would be a bearer of a memory older than the world, an infiltrator, an unsettling witness within a reality built upon forgetfulness. That is why, for the Gnostics, the problem was not sin in the usual sense. The problem was forgetting. And if the problem is forgetting, then salvation does not consist only in obeying. It consists in remembering. But remembering what? That is where the Archons appear. When people speak of gnosis, many imagine something ethereal, abstract, almost decorative. But in texts like this, the vision is much harsher. The material world does not appear as a neutral stage. It appears as a structure of confusion, an order that keeps consciousness distracted, fragmented, and tethered to the superficial. That is where the Archons enter, powers subordinate to the demiurge. And there is no need to imagine them only as celestial monsters. Sometimes, they seem like something much closer. Forces acting through fear, through false authority, through endless desire, through ignorance, through everything that keeps the human being looking outward, so they never remember what they carry within. And here is an idea that connects this manuscript to our present day. Perhaps the Archons are not just mythical characters. Perhaps they are also systems, narratives, mechanisms, structures that shape perception and turn forgetfulness into a form of government. Because the great victory of the false creator, according to this text, was not manufacturing matter. It was manufacturing forgetfulness. A forgetfulness so deep that the human being ends up believing they are only body, history, fear, and need. And then, the prison no longer even needs bars, because the prisoner does not remember being one. And if that is so, then perhaps the most perfect prison is not the material world itself. Perhaps it is the narrative that convinces you that nothing exists beyond it. And that is the real reason why this text was intolerable. If you are interested in the texts that put the official version against the ropes, subscribe now, leave a like, and share this video. Because what comes next is not a pretty symbol or a harmless metaphor. It is the reason why a book like this was not allowed to circulate freely. This manuscript was not dangerous only because it spoke of Sophia, the demiurge, or the Archons. It was dangerous because it shifted the center of gravity of the entire spiritual story. If the human being carries within a spark that does not come from the Lord of this world, then no earthly authority can fully claim it. Not political power, not religious power, not any institution that seeks to monopolize access to the truth. And therein lay the scandal. Because this text shifted salvation from blind obedience toward inner knowledge, from submission toward remembrance, from fear toward revelation. And that was not just an abstract heresy, it was a threat. Now it is clearer why these texts were not proclaimed from pulpits, why they were fought against, why they ended up buried. But there is still one more layer, the most unsettling of all. Because if the human spark was not born here, then its presence in this world would not be an accident. It would be a mission. And if that were true, the story of Adam would no longer be just the creation of the first man. It would be the moment when a light foreign to the system entered the material world. In the end, that is the true explosive charge of the secret book of John, not its strange names, not its complex cosmology, not its symbols, but this brutal accusation that echoes through the centuries. That the visible world is not the whole truth, that the creator of matter is not necessarily the supreme God, and that within the human being there exists a spark that does not entirely belong to this realm. That is why it was buried. That is why it was unsettling, and that is why it remains dangerous. Because if we ever took what is claimed here seriously, we could no longer read Genesis in the same way, nor understand the human being as a passive creature. nor look at the story of salvation as a completely closed narrative. Perhaps that is why these texts always return, because there are ideas that, even if buried, continue to breathe beneath the sand. And perhaps the most unsettling of all is this: that what you carry within was not born here. If you want us to keep uncovering the texts that someone tried to erase, subscribe to Hidden Origins, because we are not here to repeat the official version. We are here to open the files that someone wanted to close.